Welcome to Voodoo Whiskey Gaming, and this is my late review of Reanimal, or The Real Little Nightmares 3. I played it on the PS5, it's also available on the Nintendo Switch 2, PC, and Xbox Series. So let's get into the story, and the first thing to say is this is made by the same company that made Little Nightmares 1 and 2. And because of that, the story is quite ambiguous, far more ambiguous than Little Nightmares 1 or 2. Like, watching it and the post-credit scene, I kind of had somewhat of an idea, or at least I thought I did, and then I went and watched like 3 or 4 videos breaking down or giving explanations as to how the story really flowed and what was actually likely going on. And with those, I was like, okay, that actually starts to make some sense, but I'm really not going to get too deep into that because spoilers if you do play the game and watch that. That being said, you play as the boy, and if you have a co-op partner, they play as the girl, and that is their names. The two of them are on this journey in a world that is clearly flooded and at war. And the war part is actually kind of interesting because it is like this World War I vibe, which I thought was kind of cool. But at the same time, it's very much Little Nightmares inspired with these oversized, grotesque looking human beings, oversized, grotesque things and horrible things going on that are willing to just straight up murder the children. But as I stated, it's very ambiguous to the point where it was kind of frustrating. Once I watched a video piecing the story together, I liked it and appreciated it more. But at the time of playing it, I didn't love it. But let's move on to the audio, and the first thing I'm going to say is the music is fantastic. The music 100% fits the game and really keeps it going and keeps you in the world. So do all of the sound effects. They fit with exactly everything going on. They're incredibly well done. And this time there's some voiceover, but it's like really whispered and very quiet and hard to call it like voiceover. There's like maybe 20 lines throughout the entire game, but it suffices. But let's get into the gameplay mechanics and whatnot. And for me, this is where the game is a bit weaker. I definitely had issues. It's not quite a 2.5D action game. It's not quite side-scrolling. It's a little bit of both, but a little bit of third person. And then there's the horror elements. But where this game differentiates itself is it's much more combat-oriented than the previous ones. There's a lot more action-oriented stuff going on. Both the boy and girl get weapons that they carry through a good chunk of the game, and they use pretty regularly. The boy's is a crowbar, and it's actually a tool as well to pry open some doors and boxes and blah blah blah, but he also uses it in combat. But even some of the like boss sequences, which used to be much more kind of like figuring out the puzzle to defeat the boss, they're more action oriented and they involve much more combat. I don't think the combat works great. It's not the strongest element. When you can die so very easily in the combat and it doesn't flow particularly well, it kind of gets frustrating at times. I will say, fortunately, the checkpointing system in this game is good. You have a good amount of sneaking about, which generally works all right. Figuring out how to maneuver certain situations do bring back those puzzle elements, puzzle-ish elements. There are a few minor puzzles, nothing too complex. There is some exploration to be had. There are some collectibles, as well as there are some hidden items, which will lead to a secret ending, which quite frankly, that secret ending doesn't help expand on anything too much in my opinion. But through the game, you go level to level, figuring out the different bosses, getting through the different combat scenarios, completing the different objectives, and they're all tied together. But one thing I do need to complain about is the length of the game. It was incredibly short. My friend and I beat it in about 4.5 hours, and that included some added exploration to find, some of the collectibles, masks, concept art, etc. Had we not been doing that, it probably would have been 4 hours. But let's get on to the controls. And the first thing I'm going to say is the controls aren't always super precise. They work for the most part when you're moving around, but then there are some weird glitches as well. Specifically, and my friend ran into this too, there would be times where we were sneaking about and we would have let go of our control sticks and our character would still be trying to move. Like they would still be walking and we weren't touching our sticks. And you'd have to wiggle around the thumbstick a bit, actually kind of risk getting caught to stop this movement because you were already scared that this movement was gonna get you caught. But then on top of that, both of our light sources would just turn on randomly. In the case of the boy, he has a lighter, and there was a time where we were sneaking about, and I don't know if the light source actually matters for whether or not an enemy will spot you, but my lighter kept turning on, and I would turn it off, and it would turn on, and I would turn it off, and it would turn on, and I would turn it off, and it was really weird and frustrating, and it would break the vibe. It would take you straight out of it. And I recently just went through a broken controller situation, so I was worried that maybe this controller was doing something weird and funky, but no, my friend was running into the exact same issue. But let's move on to the graphics and visuals, and this is where this game shines. Visually, this brings you back to what it is the spiritual successor to Little Nightmares 1 and 2. It really captures that vibe from the enemies to the world. Everything is oversized and disproportioned, and it's dark and creepy and eerie and makes you just feel so small in this world. Animation to the enemies is, quite frankly, horrifying. The very first enemy you run into, the death animations for what he does to you or the girl are terrifying, including straight up like eating them. The way he'll crawl around, there's these weird slithering like skin sacks almost. It is every bit as grotesque and disproportioned and haunting and horrifying as you would want it to be. The animations for your running, your jumping, your swinging your weapon, all of that are very well done, and they help make you feel a little more powerless in this world, like the small being you are. My favorite area by far is you go into what is essentially a World War I battlefield, and everything about that section is phenomenal. It's creepy, it's disturbing, and it just really works in a completely different way. It's kind of hard to describe this game because of how unique it is, but it does keep up that vibe, and the desaturation really fits in the world. The darkness really fits. The way they use light is fantastic. The flooded world itself just adds this extra eerie vibe to everything going on. All the war raging on. There will be times where you're like moving forward through a city and you'll see bombs going off in the distance. And that's haunting because it's war, but it's also with how disproportioned everything is, that adds this creepy vibe. So that really matters from design to the delivery of the design. It's not trying to be hyper realistic, and that works in the design's favor. But let's move on to some issues I had in this game, starting with the connectivity. My friend and I played this game in 2 sessions, and when we started the first session, we got disconnected 3 times in the first, 30 minutes. Then it stabilized and was fine. The second session, we played for about 30-40 minutes, and then it started disconnecting, and it disconnected us about 4 times, and then it stabilized and we were able to complete the game. But either way, that's really frustrating, and when it did start to destabilize the second time and like the connectivity went to shit, it was during some really intense and interesting moments, and that just takes you all the way out of it. Especially when it's happened multiple times, because then you're just getting frustrated and you're losing your focus on what's going on. Then there was a weird glitch where my friend and I fell into these potatoes, but my friend couldn't get out of the potatoes. They could move around, but they could only walk where there were potatoes. The problem with that is it was supposed to be a stealth section, so I'm sitting there hiding. They're stuck only able to move where the potatoes are, which led to them being spotted and us getting killed and having to restart. So let's get into the wrap up. And in so many ways, this is a spiritual successor to the Little Nightmares series, as it should be. And it feels more like Little Nightmares 3 than Little Nightmares 3. But at the same time, with the connectivity issues, which were just incredibly frustrating, and then the other glitches we ran into with the controls, it left me really disappointed. And the overall length of the game left me disappointed, especially at that price tag. One thing I can give to the game, and my friend and I discussed it after the fact, is that at least it comes with a friend pass so that only one person needs to own the game. Because quite frankly, I would have felt bad having my friend buy this game. The ambiguous story, that's them, that's what they do. A little too ambiguous this time. The more combat-oriented gameplay was definitely an interesting way to go, and it worked for the most part pretty well. Not flawless though. But when you've got a game that you can get through in about 4 to 4.5 hours and the co-op is glitchy, I was just left disappointed, especially with the price tag being $40. When you look at Little Nightmares 1, that's about a 3.5 hour to 4 hour game and it was $20. Little Nightmares 2 was $30 and it was about a 6 hour game. 5.5 to 6 hour game. So considerably longer than this and $10 cheaper. I gotta say, at this price tag, I can't recommend this. If it was $40 and the upcoming DLC came along with that, yeah, cool, great. It doesn't. So that's some horse shit in my opinion. Once they have fixed this game and if they lower the price, I would be more comfortable recommending it. But as it stands right now at launch, when I'm releasing this just days after launch, I can't recommend this. And I know that I'm coming off as pretty hard on this game and I'm making it sound like it's complete and total dog shit, but I don't think that it is. I do think that there is a good experience in there. I just don't think that with the price tag and all the other glitches and whatnot going on, that I can actually recommend it. And even without those glitches, I feel like with the length of the game, that price point is just not okay. Okay, so in the comments down below, why don't you tell me, what's your favorite spiritual successor to a game? And as always, thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please hit that like button. And if you like what I'm doing in general, share and subscribe. Have a good one.